Hey everyone, Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Portal album, Ion. New on Profound Lore Records, the 5th album from Australian death metal wizards, Portal, whose previous material has always kind of been a difficult digest for me. In one breath, I've always been kind of intrigued not only by the way the band dresses on stage when they perform, but also by their completely unorthodox and sort of avant-garde approach to technical death metal. The compositions they work into their tracks are absolutely dizzying and intense, and typically add up into this incredibly noisy, hellish, uncompromising sound. They're a metal band that really appreciates texture and timbre as much as they do the melodies and chord progressions they weave into their tracks. My issue, though, in the past has been their decidedly murky production. It's always made it hard to get a full picture of the band's music for me and has created a bit of a disconnect. Not only that, but a lot of the technical flashes and details and intricacies of their music that are obviously there don't necessarily read all the time. It's kind of like they're just throwing a lot of these amazing ideas just into the void. But that completely changes. It totally does a 180 on Ion over here, whose sound and performances are just as raw and as organic as any Portal album thus far, but the bass and drums and guitars are so much more pummeling and bright and vivid. And the result of that is it just gives Portal's music so much more dynamics and punch. Of course, the hectic performances on this thing and the cultish aesthetic haven't really changed in this transition. The band's music is really sounding more frightening and hideous and harrowing than ever, and the band is using this wider frequency range on this album to just pile in more details, layer on more dissonant, horrifying guitars. They also work in a lot of weird sound play too, like the psychedelic and very surreal noises and sound effects, especially on the song PHREQS, where you do get some incredibly dissonant guitar overdubs, or the song CRONE, which features these very electric tingling swooshes kind of washing in and out like waves underneath this rushing river of insane guitars. It feels like I'm being whispered to in tongues by some kind of lightning demon while I'm being hypnotized by these incredibly just difficult to decipher tech death riffs. The band also scratches new noise itches on the song SPORES, which is easily their most abrasive yet. And they also bookend the album with these chilling, spacey, dark ambient pieces that do a lot to, I guess, kind of send out and set the tone of the album, which is incredibly dystopian and futurist. And another insanely important thing about this record is just the flow of the entire album from track to track to track, which is incredibly good, just kind of keeps me on the edge of my seat. For me, flow in a death metal album is more important than it is in maybe any other genre, because it's a niche genre, it's a very loud, abrasive sound. The worst thing is when a death metal album gets stale or gets redundant, which is why Portal goes with the kind of half-hour standby that a lot of the old school bands in the genre did. And they don't really need to go longer, because each one of these tracks is so dense, it's so thick, it's so detailed. Tracks can be listened to over and over and over, and you just kind of gain new info and experiences from each track, because it's just so mathematical. And as naughty and as tangled each song on this thing is, the more I listened to it, the more each track kind of revealed its own individual flavor to me, as well as quirks and characteristics, like on the song PHATHOM. In the second half, the track features these gargantuan metallic bangs and clangs that are kind of in sync with the guitar riffs. Or the song Ion Age, which is one of the most densely packed songs on the entire record. Each chunk of like 30 seconds of guitar work on this thing is like so vastly different from the previous one. Different intensities, different grooves, and this track is loaded with these really ghostly vocal performances too. The vocal refrain on REVAULT of Volts is probably the closest this thing comes to like delivering a hook. REVAULT of Volts, REVAULT of Volts. Not only that, but the frantic guitar work on this thing toward the end is topped with these loud, bright, distorted, searing chords that sound like, I don't know, a transformer having some kind of electric malfunction, like there's like 10 million volts of electricity running through it and it's about to explode. For me, the song Husk is maybe the runt of the litter. It's not quite as sonically adventurous or as densely packed as a lot of the other songs here, but I do like the constant shifts in speed and tempo on this thing. It does make it a unique moment on the album and an interesting listen to a degree. It's not a terrible track. And one more time I want to specifically mention the outro on this album. It does have a very dark, very ambient tone to it. There are kind of these ghostly, disembodied, like calling from beyond the grave, human moans sort of calling out against like these very dark, droney tones and what sounds like an old, crackly record skipping. And that's just one of the many moments on this thing that leave me feeling like I'm not just listening to an album, I'm not just listening to a band, I'm not just listening to a studio session. I feel like this record really has a sense of place. I feel like as I'm listening to some of these dizzying downward spirals of tech death that I'm being dragged down into hell or something. And I love that feel, I love that vibe, I love that darkness, I love the band's aesthetic, I just love how intense and surreal and detailed this album is. Incredibly impressed with it, not just from the standpoint of a metal record, but just on the whole of music. I feel like this album just delivers and serves up so much, because really the writing, the production, the performances, the creativity, the pushing of the envelope, it's all there in spades, really. I can't complain about much of what this album has to offer. I'm feeling a light to decent 9 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave a thoughtful comment in the comments if you're feeling kind of thoughtful. Anthony Fantano, Portal, Ion. Over here next to my head is another review that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel forever.